Welcome to the Talking Phase podcast, where relationships, dating, and personal growth take center stage. From the highs and lows of dating to the triumphs and tribulations of relationships, no topic is off limits. Tune in for laughter, tears, and insights that will leave you feeling seen, heard, and inspired. It's time to get real, get honest, and get talking. Now, here are your hosts, Pam and Tom.
Hello and welcome to the Talking Phase podcast. How are you today, Pam?
I am doing great today, Tom. How are you?
You know what? It is a fabulous day, but as the late, great Scarface once said, every day above ground is a good day.
Late, great Scarface said it best.
All right. So we're recording this in the midweek, but we haven't talked for a week. So tell me, what'd you do? Anything fun over the weekend?
Well, happy hump day. And I actually did have a pretty good weekend. I don't know if I've mentioned in past, I belong to a pretty large social group here in Raleigh. It's called GOAT, Goofing Off Around the Triangle. And got like 8,000 or 9,000 members. So it's pretty huge. And a lot of the time they organize things that are for charity. And so this weekend I attended a huge event called Bad Prom for a Good Cause. And all of the proceeds went to suicide awareness. So it was kind of a blast to see all these people dressed up in prom dresses, or they were probably more like bridesmaids dresses, but they were doubling as prom dresses. There was a lot of very, very wild outfits there. And they even did prom king and prom queen. Sadly, I did not win.
Oh, I was going to ask.
No, I didn't win, but you can't win if you don't play. And it was a great time. It was a great cause.
So did they play like 80s music, or what was the...
Yeah, I mean, 80s and 90s mostly. We had a DJ. It was great, and I had a really good time. If you ever come to visit Raleigh, or you're in the area, I'll bring you to one of the events, because there's a ton of good people, lots of fun here in Raleigh. What about you? What did you do this weekend?
Oh, well, before I get there, did everybody just hear that Pam just asked me to prom?
Oh, I guess I did. That goes against all of my rules, though.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Yeah. So I guess Pam just officially asked me out. You heard it here first. Well, all right. So you asked me what I did. Well, I went to Nashville. As a lot of our listeners know, my brother and best friend passed away last year. And so his wife and I, we spend time together. She's amazing. She's one of my best friends. And she's here in Atlanta, where I live. And she's also a fan of my second favorite podcast. Do you know what my first favorite is?
I really do.
Okay. Yeah. It's the Talking Phase podcast. Yeah. But my second favorite podcast is called Small Town Murder. And Deneen, my sister-in-law, also loves that show. And so we had tickets to a live episode of their show, not a live episode, but a live presentation, or whatever they call it. So we drove up to Nashville Saturday and had a great time, saw the show, came back Sunday. Just had a blast. And so if you're not listening to Small Town Murder, after you listen to Talking Phase, go subscribe to Small Town Murder.
And I listened to the first episode that they put out, and I could not stop laughing. I mean, I know that the word murder might turn people off, but those guys are hysterical. And honestly, I felt by the time it was over that it was a lot less about the murder than it was about the humor that related to the town where the murder took place. So go give it a try for sure if you're looking for a laugh.
Yeah. And if for whatever reason you don't think that comedy and crime or violent crime can somehow go together, well, probably not for you, but these guys make it work, and it's hilarious. So anyway, that's our commercial for Small Town Murder. They're friends of mine, so I always want to help them out. So, all right, before we get to our show today, Pam, I want to thank everybody out there for listening. We had our first episode last week. It has been shockingly successful. We've had a lot of people give us a lot of great compliments. I know that you've heard a lot from your friends and people that aren't necessarily friends, but people have really come out of the woodwork to talk about it.
I've definitely gotten a lot of feedback. Even my dad listened to the podcast. He had some advice that I have taken into account because he is my dad. But yeah, I told him, buyer beware. If you listen to the podcast, you need to be prepared for things that you might not expect to hear.
Yeah. That's a good point. I should probably warn my family that I'm going to completely make fun of every one of them.
Well, they'll love that. They'll love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, they should be warned. Well, but I want to thank everybody for not only for listening and for being part of our little, very brand new but growing community of the Talking Phase podcast, but for those of you who have already rated us on the various platforms or written a review, thank you so much. Those of you who haven't yet, please do so. That really helps. For some reason, the podcast gods love ratings and reviews, so make sure you do that. And also, just like Pam did with her dad, make sure you share this with your friends and your family. Make sure if you like what we're doing, share this. And then, of course, join us every week. We come out, we drop a new episode every Friday. And anything else you want to talk about before we jump into the show?
No, I'm so excited about tonight's episode that I can't wait to get started. What's it about, Tom?
Oh boy. This is like one of my favorite subjects. We are going to talk for this entire episode about sex. For the whole episode. Sex.
Oh, I heard you that time.
Yeah. And sex is one of my favorite things to talk about and to do. Let's be real. So what about you? You think you're ready to talk about this for this long? Is your dad going to be okay with this?
I'm on board. Let's go.
Okay.
Let's talk about it.
All right. So the reason,
baby.
exactly.
I couldn't even do this. Sorry.
I thought about asking Brian to put that, see if we could find that song, but whatever. Well, everybody can sing it. Yeah. All right. So we decided, it's not that Pam and I sat down one day and said, hey, you know what? Let's make an entire episode about sex. That wasn't how this came about. The reason that we decided to make this episode about sex is because last week sometime, someone asked me on TikTok to make a video about sex. Now, she didn't just say, hey, make a video about sex. It wasn't like that. She made a viewer request, and her name, or at least her TikTok handle, is Sunflower66. So Brian, can you, oh, there it is. So Brian is amazing. Thank you, Brian. Her question is, why do men only want sex from us? Please make a video about that. Well, with an invitation like that, who could resist?
Not you.
Exactly. So I made a video. And there were a lot of comments, not going to lie. There were a ton of comments. Hey, and spoiler alert, a lot of the women that made comments agreed with her that men only want sex from women. Now, I'm a pretty opinionated guy, in case you haven't noticed. But before I share my opinion, Pam, what do you think? Is she right? Do men only want sex?
I see. I get to answer this question first.
Yep.
And I'm really not going to hold back in telling you how I feel. We haven't discussed it, but I think that this should be an open conversation in general, friend groups, men and women that are friends. And as much as I hate to say this, I think that men do want sex. Sadly, I think that they even want it on a first date. I think that from the moment that they sit down across from you, they are either imagining having sex with you, if they're attracted to you, of course, or they're probably not imagining having sex with you if you're not their type, let's say. But we live in an age where instant gratification seems to reign supreme. And men, they just seem done playing the long game. And in your 50s, I'm in my 50s, and I date within 5 years of my age. Being divorced, I know that sex really wasn't a high priority for years for me at the end of my marriage. And I see a lot of people complaining about their sex life and how it led to their divorce. And I think that when you're in a marriage or a long-term relationship and you're not getting along and you're fighting all the time, sex just isn't as important, especially to the women. Although I did read some stats that said it's still really important to the men. They don't really care if they like you in that moment or they don't like you. But women are searching, and we're searching for, I think, a more meaningful connection And a lot of the time, we're unable to find out if there's even potential for a meaningful connection with the person we're dating unless we put out, I'm using air quotes because I hate to say that, but I have felt that on quite a few dates. And as a woman, I know that I personally, and it is a personal decision, I'm not interested in a sexual relationship with a man unless I know that there's potential for, or already we are in a relationship. And so a lot of the time when you're in the beginning phases of getting to know somebody, dating them, it feels like you're banging your head against the wall.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I interrupt you?
No, that's okay. I mean, I was done. I'm frustrated with the fact that I don't have time to get to know somebody before they've decided that they want to find out if we have a sexual connection.
Well, there are a couple of thoughts that I have about what you just said and about some of the comments on the video. Obviously, I already said I'm kind of opinionated. So I'm just going to share. First off, you said that, on a first date, men might already be thinking about having sex with you. They weren't waiting for the first date, I promise.
Oh.
So let's just start about that. But you also said that if you're fighting in your relationship, then sex is the last thing you're thinking about or something. I can't remember exactly how you put it, which
That's basically what I said.
and I agree. The problem is that a lot of those fights are about sex. Because, you've heard me say before the 4 F's in marriage. I don't know if you've heard me say it. Other people have. The 4 F's in marriage are friends, family, finances, and sex.
I caught that. I don't think I've heard you say that before.
Yeah, you see what I did there? No. Anyway, but the point is that those are the 4 things that most couples fight over. And, kids go in there too. But the bottom line is sex is a major cause of frustration in marriage. And so it's hard to know if the fights caused the sex or the lack of sex caused the fights. And
both. I definitely will say both.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let me share my quick opinion here on this question that she asked. And by the way, your opinion, I agree with you on a lot of that. Obviously, you're coming at it from a female point of view, and I'm coming at it from a male point of view, which is why we built the show this way. But the fact is, the way she asked the question, she did not ask about why do some men only want sex with us. She said men. And so it's clear that she thinks it's all men, including me. And to be blunt, that kind of pisses me off because and a little bit, it sounds like you agree with her to a fairly large extent. But and others know, I really hate gender-based stereotypes. I hate them. Because I think it's ridiculous to think that all men do one thing and all women do another thing. Genitalia does not dictate or guarantee behavior. And so, I mean, when she says, and she didn't say all men, but she didn't say some men either.
Yeah.
And so I take it as all men. And the fact that this man right here, and I might be 0.00001% of all the men on earth, but at least there's one man for sure who doesn't just want sex. They only want sex. And so it's kind of, and I know I'm making it all too literal, but it's, she asked the question. So anyway, that's how I feel.
I saw that. And, I can understand if you're in that small percentage that really is looking for a connection and you want to get to know somebody before you jump into bed with them, that it would hurt your feelings to be lumped in with the 80% of the population. But as a woman who has been on plenty of first dates, second dates, third dates, I don't find there to be much worse than you feel you're building a meaningful connection with the person and getting to know them. And all of the texts become sexual innuendos and every other line out of their mouth is alluding to when you're going to be in bed with them. Or it's just borderline obnoxious for a man to think that we are going to go to bed with them so that they can figure out if they want a relationship with us. That's just ass backwards, in my opinion.
And I agree 100% with that. I disagree that it's 80%. But I haven't done a study and you haven't dated 80% of the men, even no matter how many first dates you've been on, it's not 80% of us. Okay. But like I said, there were a lot of great comments on that video and, some people agreed with her. A lot of women disagreed with her, by the way, which was nice to see. But anyway, maybe we'll get to a few of them on the show. But one of our amazing listeners decided to slide right into our DMs. And by DMs, of course, I mean she sent an email to talkingphase@gmail.com. So what do you think, Pam? I think we should read that DM or that email. What do you think?
You've got mail.
That was from God. Do you guys remember when you used to hear that noise all the time? All right, well, I need to put these on so that I can read this. Here's what she said. Pam, this DM is from Janice up in Michigan. So thank you very much for your email, Janice. We love reader email. We will tell you again at the end how you can get us your email to tell us your story. And here's what she writes. Dear Talking Phase, I need to vent and maybe get some advice. I've been dating a man that I met on a dating app for about 4 weeks. I really enjoy his company. We've been on 7 dates and we text a lot.
Well, okay. All right. So I'm going to stop you if that's okay as we go through this. That's not the whole email, by the way, everyone, but I'm going to stop Pam and we're going to talk about some of these because I mean, there's a lot packed into that sentence or however many sentences that was. First off, they met on a dating app, which I think, unfortunately, that's how most of us meet. But what did she say? 7 dates?
7 dates in 4 weeks.
4 weeks. I went to public school, but I think that's almost 2 per week.
2 per week. Maybe the whole weekend. For all we know, they go out every Friday and Saturday night.
Right. Or yeah. But that seems like an awful lot. Do you think that's a lot in 4 weeks? Is 7 dates a lot?
I mean, I think that really depends on how much you like the person. I honestly have not gone on 7 dates in a 4-week period unless I was in a relationship with that person. She wrote that they met on a dating app. I get the impression that it's not a relationship yet, but yeah, I think that's a lot of dates, quite honestly.
Okay. So you made a video a few weeks ago or a couple of weeks ago about the 3-date rule.
Mm-hmm. That's my favorite.
I assume this email is going to talk a lot about that kind of thing. So what do you think? Can we move on?
I can talk about the 3-date rule in another time. I'll continue with her email. The next thing she wrote was, so far, all we've done is kiss. But ever since our first date, he has talked a lot about what it's going to be like when we sleep together.
What the hell does that mean? Like positions?
It's not very specific. Hopefully he's just saying like, God, I can't wait to rock your world. I don't know. I would assume that he's not saying this is probably going to suck. So.
But okay. So I guess, and I'm not defending him, but is that, I mean, she didn't say, right, that he started doing that on date number 1. He's just talked a lot about it, right?
No, and normally I find that men don't talk that much about sex until things have gotten kind of hot and heavy, at least on a couple of dates. And she says all they have done is kiss. And so I can't imagine going from somebody that I'm just kissing and all of a sudden they're talking about jumping into bed, but men will be men.
I guess depends on the type of kissing, right? I mean, if they're, if she invited him in or something and they're on the couch totally making out for half an hour and all they're doing is kissing, I guess I can understand why he might see it differently.
I feel like that would mean he skipped second and third base. And if you went to school when I went to school, you had to round those bases. There was a lot of third base before you got to home run. So I'm just saying, all we've done is kiss. And he's talking about sex. To me, that's a red flag.
Okay. Again, though, I mean, if it's date number 5 and they're sitting on the couch, they've just finished watching. Yeah, they've been kissing. Like all they've done is kiss for 45 minutes in a row. I can understand him saying, "All right, what's next?" Because, right? I mean,
we're in our 50s. Maybe this has not been my experience, but maybe.
Do we know how old Janice is?
Going to the bases.
Yeah. Do we know how old Janice is?
No, I don't think that she told us in this email. But I think that our audience draws, 40 and over. Usually we talk about divorce a lot. And,
Yeah.
kids.
Plus her name is Janice.
Yes, that's a good point. It's kind of an old school name.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
So they're kissing, but he's talking about what it's going to be like. I'm going to rock your world, or I like doggy. One of those kind of conversations.
both of those would be shocking to me if I had only just kissed somebody. But again, it's 7 dates. Like, to me, it's shocking that they've only kissed and it's been 7 dates, because we know he was thinking about sex before he even met her, according to you.
Oh, well, of course, 20 times a day, right?
And that was a stat.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember that. All right. Well, let me tell you what she says next. She says, I told him I don't sleep with anyone unless we're in a committed relationship. And at first, he seemed to understand. But he's recently divorced and says he's not ready to make another commitment.
Oh, that's some bullshit right there.
So unfortunately, he's playing the field. So I would imagine first base is probably unacceptable for him at this point.
Well, clearly, I mean, yeah. I mean, if he's already pushing it, but at the same time, he's what she says, I won't sleep. What did she say? I don't sleep with someone unless what?
She says, unless he's ready to make another commitment, unless he's ready to be in a committed relationship with her. She's not going to be Miss Saturday and let Friday go to Betty over there.
Well, good for her. I support that 100%.
No. And that's how I feel about relationships. I think I said that in the beginning. I don't believe, it's not that I don't believe it. I went through a phase in my 20s. Of course, we all went through phases where we were maybe having some one night stands, having a good time. Then you get married and you have a couple kids. And I get the impression, and I'm not lumping all men together, but I do get the impression that men that are recently divorced, especially if they're coming out of a marriage that lacked a lot of sexual intimacy, are looking to get a lot of sex as fast as they can. They're looking to make up for some lost time.
It's funny, when I got divorced 4.5 years ago, the day after I found out I was getting a divorce, I just happened to have my annual checkup with my doctor. And so I was pretty pissed off. I was pretty down. And, but I sat down with pardon me?
I said, no pun intended.
Oh yeah. Well, so I went in to see the doctor, just for my annual checkup. And he said, he said, how you doing? And I told him, well, not great. I just found out that Trinity and I are getting a divorce. And he goes, oh, hold on. And he pulls out an old fashioned prescription pad. And, because everything he's ever done before has been electronic, he sent it over to the pharmacy if I had needed medication. And he pulls out his prescription pad and starts writing on it. And he tears it off with a big flourish, and hands it to me. And I look at it, and all it says on it is condoms.
Oh, see, it's one man to another man, even though it's a doctor. It's a mentality.
No, let me finish the story.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, because you're not going to like the ending based on what you just said. Because he said, every single day of my life, I get recent divorcees in here with chlamydia. Yeah. And he said, you need to be careful, because these recently divorced women, and this is in Utah, by the way, so I don't know if it's different geographically, but he said women come after the men like crazy. Now, I don't know if he knows that for sure. I'm just telling you what my doctor told me. But he said, you go out and you buy some condoms. And I said to him, look, his name's Michael. I said, look, Michael, that's not my style. That's not who I am. And he goes, buy some condoms, Tom.
Oh, well, clearly he knew what you were going to be doing, more so than it seems you did.
But I didn't.
Oh.
So there you go. So once again, there's Pam and a lot of other women in the comments who assume that all men are out there doing that, which we're not all doing.
1 in a million. You're 1 in a million.
Okay. Based on what data?
I don't know. So you didn't have a wild phase after your divorce?
I didn't. I mean, it would have been fun, I guess, but it's just not who I am. I feel a lot like Janice does, that, I'm not going to sleep with someone unless I'm in some sort of a committed like an actual relationship.
Janice and Pam feel the same way. So
Okay.
so, and maybe there are women out there that are also just looking to hook up. I mean, we all scroll on TikTok. We know that there is a lot of that going on right now, especially people getting out of long-term marriages. So
Yeah.
I'm never going to be the one to say that women also don't just want sex. Sometimes you just don't want the complications. So
Yeah, I think I think there was a while back on TikTok that a lot of people were talking about them going into their hoe phase. And it was a lot of women were the ones making the TikTok saying, "Hey, I'm in my hoe phase now." And I remember thinking, what a bizarre thing to announce to the world. But one of our longtime listeners and followers on TikTok, Dreamweaver, actually commented on the video and said, "Why is it that we women only want sex from men?" And so at least she recognizes that it does go both ways.
yeah, it is a pot meets kettle scenario. But the statistics do show that men think about sex at least 25 to 30 times a day, where women think about it 10 times a day. That information comes direct from Google, so don't ask me where I've confirmed it.
But by the way, I think those are averages because my ex-wife, I think, thought about it once every 10 or 15 days.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I'm sure that my ex-husband would say the same thing about me. So I think when it comes to long-term marriages, which is not this email that we received, but when it comes to long-term marriages, I think that the longer you've been married and the worse it's going, the less sex you're having, whether it's the woman's side, whether it's the man's side. I think that we can all agree that that is the fact. All right, so let me read what she says next.
All right.
Oh, well, what she says next plays right into what I just said. His wife hated sex.
Oh,
And
great.
I know that it's important to him. I'm also divorced and haven't slept with anyone but my husband since we met in college. I'm really nervous that I'll sleep with him and then get hurt.
Okay. Okay. First off, so she wrote earlier something about that she won't sleep. I don't sleep with someone unless we're in a committed relationship. But now she says she's never slept with anyone but her ex-husband.
Well, I mean, so she has a record of one.
Right.
You didn't sleep with him, I assume, until they were in a committed relationship.
Pretty low body count.
Right. And, I can totally understand that. When I came out of my marriage, I wasn't looking for a good time. I was looking for the next real relationship and hopefully the last relationship. And that was 5 years ago. And I still haven't found it, but I've never just wanted a sexual relationship and nothing more. I've never had like a friends with benefits or a situation like that. I've always tried to date people where I felt like there was at least potential for a relationship. And sometimes I've made really bad choices, but
I think we've all been there.
that's the truth.
Yeah. Well, so his wife hated sex, which, I joke around about my ex-wife that, we were on the, every 2 or 3 week plan. I don't think she hated sex. But I will tell you, it caused some friction in our marriage. No pun intended there either. But she, and she says, I know that it's important to him. Well, of course it's important to him. I mean, it should be. And now here's a question I've never asked you. And should sex be important to both parties in a marriage?
I think if the marriage is good and solid, that it absolutely should, and most likely is good. I think is the norm. I think the problems start when things start to go badly. People, I mean, you hear a lot of stories, and I was accused in my marriage of withholding sex because we were going through a problematic time, and it was absolutely true. You
were withholding sex?
Well,
or just not in the mood. I think those are different things.
Well, I said when things weren't going well, when we were in the middle of a fight or having a problem, he would maybe still want to have sex. And yeah, I wasn't in the mood and I wasn't interested. I use the word withholding. Maybe that's the wrong word, but I think that most people, men and women, are not so likely to, well, maybe not men. Let me rethink that. I know that I read also that For men, it's a physical need, and for women, it's an emotional need. And with that said, I guess a man still wants to have sex, even if things are really, really shitty in the relationship. But I think for a woman, we need things to be okay or better to want to be intimate.
Here's an interesting thing about that, because I think it's fascinating to talk about this, because I think that some people, and I will say a lot of men, they'll want to have sex even when things aren't going well, because it's a reassurance that they can be better. If a woman says, "Nope, get away from me," that is like an absolute. It's highlighting the fact that we are in a really bad place and it may not get better. And because here's the thing, when I found out about Trinity's affair, she was like begging me to stay and everything like that. And I'm trying to figure out what to do. I didn't know that I was going to forgive her. I was like, what the hell what do I do next? And so she basically said, come to bed. And she knew that about me, or at least maybe she knew it about herself. I don't know. But she tried to have sex with me that night to try to fix the problem. So it's that's fascinating to me.
And what you just said is pretty fascinating to me. There were many times that it crossed my mind that offering sex could fix the problem, but I was so not in the mood because of the problem that I was unable to think outside the box.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Janice also said that she's afraid she's afraid to sleep with him because she might get hurt.
Well, I think that for her, having such a limited sexual history, sex meant marriage to her. And if this man has already told her that he's not ready to make another commitment, my question is, why are you dating him?
Right.
Why have you been out with him 7 times? Like, this man has told you he does not want a commitment. Move on. Like, I can't find anything appealing about this guy. Like, he's talking about sex all the time. He's telling her how important it is to him. His wife wasn't interested. Like,
I was going to say he must have a really giant dick, but she doesn't even know that yet.
No, and I don't think she cares. I mean, she's been with one man. I don't know she has much to compare it to. But at the end of the day, where I am in this letter that she wrote, I cannot figure out, like, Janice, dump him. Like, he's playing games. He's not interested in a relationship. It's time to just cut your losses and move on.
Absolutely.
That's what I think.
I totally agree.
Then she says, and we're getting towards the end of the email, he's been patient so far. However, he said that he wants me to come over for dinner and a movie this weekend.
Oh, dun, dun, dun.
Right. Duh. He also has made it pretty clear that he wants things to end up in the bedroom. Look, this guy is not even playing any games.
Well, that's a good thing then, right?
I think it's a good thing. He's probably not been playing games since the second date. I'm not exactly sure why he's still dating Janice.
Right.
And no offense to Janice, but like, these two people are not at the same place in their lives. Like, why is this still going on?
And we don't know his name at all, right?
No, she, I think she wants to make sure it doesn't get back to him that she's written this letter.
So we're going to call him Thor. So Janice and Thor are dating, and Janice wants to have sex only in a committed relationship, which both of us have agreed is the right thing. It's we both support that.
Right.
But now Thor has been clear from either through innuendos or just flat out statements that he wants to get in bed. Right. Now they've been dating for 4 weeks.
4 weeks.
4 weeks. So 7 dates. So we're looking for 1 month, right? And we're moving up to date number 8, where he's invited her over for dinner and basically a movie, which we all know.
Netflix and chill, boy.
Yeah, or Stream and Cream, or whatever we're going to call it.
I've not heard that. That's a little worse than Netflix and chill.
Yeah, a little less. A little less of a veiled.
Sex. I mean, at this point, I'm interested in the story, but at the same time, I'm concerned for both of them. Clearly, he really likes Janice, or he just really is enjoying the challenge, the chase, which we know that a lot of people really, men and women both enjoy the chase. And so he's like determined that he's going to get some. And he's made it very clear that date number 8, which is probably their 1 month anniversary at 4 weeks, like it's time to put up or shut up. And I can't even blame him, honestly, at this point.
Yeah.
But
Put out or get out.
Yeah, yes, all of yours are better than mine. Work on these terms, but yeah, I think that I think we're heading towards a climax.
Oh,
Sorry,
you see what you did there?
I win the internet.
Well done.
I'm not prom queen, but I just
Yeah, Pam wins the internet tonight. Okay, so but he's made it pretty clear that he wants things to end up in the bedroom, I think is what she said, which is
yes, that's what she
again,
said.
kudos to him.
Right.
I guess, for being clear. But now by the way, why the hell she's calling or emailing us for advice is crazy. But yeah, because I still don't know what my advice is going to be to her.
No, well, the next thing she says is, I'm concerned that he just wants to have sex. Then he'll disappear. He has always made very sexual comments, and I try to flirt with him, but not give him the wrong idea. So now Janice is kind of a tease.
Right.
She's flirting with him. She's basically, it sounds like her innocent, air quote, flirting is at least kept him hanging on this long. And now he's in it and he's ready.
So here's the thing about this that kind of drives me crazy. But this is like a little roller coaster. So at first I was all like, that Thor's a douchebag. He's in it just for the sex. But then it's like, well, no, he's put in quite a bit of effort. She made it clear that she's wanting to do the commitment thing, which is great. And he's been around and he's sticking with her, but now he's inviting her over for dinner. And like, well, we all know where that's going. But then it's like, well, wait a minute, I flirt with him.
Yeah. And I think that he has pretty much decided that with this dinner date, like he's either going to seal the deal or I would imagine Thor is going to move on to greener pastures.
Yeah, I would imagine that's true.
Janice, I don't know. I think maybe like she's waited long enough. Personally, has he bought dinner 7 times? Like I've heard of the 3-date rule, but the 7-date rule, is he like taking her out, whining and dining?
Yeah, but at the same time, that one, there were people on your 3-date rule video that talked about that. And it's like, it doesn't matter how many dinners or anything that anyone's bought. That can't be the, once you reach the $400 mark, I owe you sex kind of a thing. It doesn't work for me. In
our role reversal here. I just feel like the innocent flirting, coupled with the fact that he's been talking about sex since the very beginning and been pretty honest. Like this is pretty much a clear-cut situation. He wants to have sex with Janice and he's tired of waiting, whether he's spent $400 or $4,000. He ain't bringing her out no more. He's going to make her dinner, order a freaking pizza. Yeah.
Well, I guess, I don't know. 7 dates seems like an awful long time to flirt and kiss only, but at the same time, it doesn't seem like a month is very long at all.
No. And had she been upfront and said to him, listen, I don't know that I'm going to be ready for a sexual relationship for 6 months or a year. But in her defense, she did tell him, or maybe she just told us. Now that I think about it, I don't remember, but like she did say she doesn't want to have sex unless she's in a committed relationship. I fear that she did not say that to him because it sounds like she doesn't want to lose him.
Right.
She's kind of dangling a carrot and seeing if, she can get him to wait longer. But I'm positive at this point she knows like the time has come. So I'll finish reading what she said. She said, if he's not ready for a relationship, then I feel like he might be dating multiple women.
Okay. When?
I don't know. Maybe he dates on Mondays and Thursdays. I don't know. Because she never told us what 2 days. She sees him a week. And she never said if it's every week. We just know it's 7 dates. So I think it's come on. You're going to tell me you've never dated more than had a date with 2 or 3 different people in a week? I
have. Just hold on for 1 second. I think Brian wanted to chime in.
I have a voice of God comment here. And that is, it just sounds like the relationship is going back and forth with sex being used as, I'm going to use the word weapon very loosely here, but it's almost to the, it's like it's a tool to get what you want. It sounds like these behaviors are kind of coming from a past experience in a relationship where sex was leveraged to get something emotionally satisfying in return. And I don't know, I'm just a little hesitant listening to this story because it sounds like Janice is using sex in the exact same method here.
She's holding out
in order to and I'm going to say emotionally manipulate, and that might not be a fair expression, but if she understands that sex is exactly what Thor wants, and maybe Thor is looking at sex as a very important part of forming a relationship, her not being forthright in saying, this isn't what I want to start a relationship, I think is being used as a tool to manipulate Thor. What do you guys think?
Well, I think it's possible she's just nervous. She doesn't come across as a confident woman. I mean, she's been married, let's say 20, 30 years. She's coming back into the dating scene. I don't think she's manipulating him at all. That doesn't mean I don't think that like he has been manipulated. I don't think it was on purpose. I think she's biding her time to try to figure out if she can get him to commit to her so that she can have sex. That's what I think.
Well, my thought on that is, first off, Brian coming in hot with his first voice comment on our show. Second is, it's an interesting viewpoint coming from another man, but at the same time, I think that it might be that Thor is also emotionally manipulating, because he says, my ex-wife hated sex. Right. Therefore, basically, if you can't prove to me that you love sex, I don't want to be with you, even though he hasn't said that we know of.
Yeah. And he's been dating her for a month. Like, if it was so easy for him to have sex, I'm positive that he could have probably kept swiping and met multiple other women who probably would have slept with him before the 7 dates that they've been on. So I think he's interested in her. I mean, and maybe he's a little confused and conflicted about whether he wants a relationship or not. It's easy to say you're not ready for a relationship, but isn't that when most relationships happen, when you're least ready for them? I mean, so I think there's a multitude of ways to look at this, and we're not going to get into his head, but we're in her head, because she finishes by saying, this is the end of the messages. I also don't want to stop seeing him. How do I know if he just wants sex? And she signs it. Thanks for your advice, Janice. And I don't know if we've helped her, if we've given her any advice. What do you think, Tom?
I think it seems to me, here we have 3 reasonably intelligent people reading this email from Janice, or hearing this email at least, and I don't know. My advice to Janice and to Thor is, you two need to sit down and have a talk.
I love calling him Thor.
Well, that's the first thing that came to mind. But these two need to sit down and have a conversation about what they both want. And maybe Janice, after a 5-minute conversation that it doesn't seem like they've had.
Well, that's hard to believe.
No. I'm sure they've talked for 5 minutes. I mean, about this particular subject, because it sounds like he's given her all sorts of innuendos, inviting her over for dinner. And she says he made it clear he wants it to end up in the bedroom. And how did he make that clear? Did he say, I want you to get over here, have dinner, and we're going to go straight to the bedroom and have sex? Or did he say, I'd like you to come over and maybe you can spend the night? I mean, I don't know. What was the innuendo, or what's the way he made it clear?
Well, as a woman who has heard this innuendo on multiple times, and not always, on the first date or the second date, but, as you're rounding the third and fourth date, 7 dates is an awful lot for sex to have not come up, or not to have had to say, hey, I'm not ready for that. In my experience, it comes up prior to the 7th date. I think they've both hit a brick wall.
Right.
He knows what he wants. She knows what she wants. He's not ready for a relationship. She only wants to have sex if they're in a relationship. I think they cut their losses and skip the date at the house unless she's ready, because in Thor's defense, he's he's being pretty honest with her. And you know what? That doesn't make him a great guy, but sometimes the most you can hope for in this scenario is some honesty.
Yeah. And again, it sounds to me like, well, I think they have a communication problem, which again, I think that's the root of most relationship issues. Not all of them, but a lot of relationship issues can be resolved if the two parties can actually have a conversation about a very direct conversation about whatever the problem is. And she, quite frankly, the fact that she's asking us advice on this makes it clear to me that she's
Nervous. She's nervous.
and she
She
hasn't
likes this
asked
guy.
him. She should
Yeah.
just read this email to him.
Yeah, but I think at the end of the day, she's trying to save this quasi relationship. She's new at this, and those of us have been on the dating scene for a long time. It's pretty straightforward. I don't think it would have come to this, but this is an inexperienced woman coming into the dating app world. This is the first man that she's like dated. 7 dates. Like by 7 dates, somebody's my freaking boyfriend or they're not. I mean, that's just been my experience. Like, not the month, like 7 dates in a month is a lot, but like they're texting a lot. I think that they're forming what she considers to be a relationship. And I think it's possible that he's just trying to get laid, which is kind of where we came in.
Okay. Well, a couple of things. First off, I don't think we know that she's just starting in the dating world. I don't think that was in the email. I think that's something we assumed. And so, but the other thing, so here's my final advice for what do we call her? Janice. That's her name, right? I made up Thor, but it was Janice was her real name. My advice for Janice, literally read this email to him. Either that or play this podcast for him. And then you guys sit down and have a conversation, a very direct conversation about what you both want out of your, call it a situationship, a relationship, your dating scenario, whatever you want to call it. Be open, be honest, and move on from there.
Yeah. And I completely agree with Tom. I mean, I have been in similar situations as Janice. Most men don't even wait till the 7th date. So I know that it's really hard to sit down and have a relationship conversation with somebody that you don't even know if you're in a relationship with them. And honestly, they're not in a relationship because he's already said he's not looking for a serious relationship. He's already said, he's told you his wife didn't want to have sex and he misses it and he likes you. Yes, he likes you. But that doesn't mean that if you have sex with him, he's going to be your boyfriend, because he's been pretty honest about the fact that he's not ready for that. So if you're not ready to read him this email or let him know that you talked about it on a podcast, just say, hey, I don't know when I'm going to be ready. It could be a month. It could be 6 months. And if you're not down for that, then we should part ways. We shouldn't see each other anymore. And see what he says,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's right. Well, this has been a great conversation. We didn't get to any of those TikTok comments, but do you have any parting thoughts before we sign off today?
No, I mean, I was thinking about it as we were talking about the email. I was thinking about situations that I have been in myself. I was thinking about from when we started talking tonight and how that TikTok really blew up because so many women feel that men only want sex. And yes, for the most part, I have found that it's a big topic for men, that it is more important for them sooner than it is for me. But with that said, there have definitely been times where I, as a woman, have been dating somebody and it is maybe a little possible that they weren't quite ready to get to that level. And maybe I was the one that seemed overeager in those situations. So I think that this goes both ways, although I think it's much more prominent with men wanting sex earlier from women and it being more important to men earlier. I think if you're in a good, healthy relationship, both partners generally want to be having a good sex life. But I think that it works both ways. I think that there are women who also would like to have the relationship become intimate before somebody that they're dating. And if I'm guilty of that, I apologize to you men, and I won't do it again,
Well, that is wow, that's quite a, I don't know if it's an admission or whatever we want to call it.
I just feel like it's important to be, if we're going to have these honest conversations, I think that none of us are perfect. We've all been on the receiving end of somebody moving quicker than we want to move. I am not innocent at sometimes being super turned on by somebody, maybe earlier than I anticipate, and being ready for something that maybe they're not ready for. Now they've gone along, so I don't know. Like, no one's like, no, stop, and I've been like, no, let me. I mean,
Yes.
that's not happened, but sometimes women are the aggressor too.
Yeah. So I'm just going to end it here by saying we've been recording now for just about 50 minutes. I'm going to ask or suggest that you tell your dad that we ended the podcast at 45 minutes.
Yeah, I might do that.
Yeah.
Shut it off, Dad.
Yeah. Shut it off, Dad. Shut it off, Pam's dad. All right. Well, Pam, as always, absolutely fabulous conversation. I want to thank you for a great conversation. I want to thank Janice and Thor for providing such great material. Those of you guys out there that enjoyed this, please, if you have a story or if you'd like some sage advice,
we'll try not to hurt your feelings.
Yeah. If you want us to completely trash your heartfelt emails, send it to talkingphase@gmail.com. Otherwise, I want to thank everybody for listening. As always, please take just 2 seconds right now to rate the show on whatever app you're using to hear it right now.
Unless you didn't like it.
Yeah, unless you didn't like it. And even if you didn't like it, just give us 5 stars just because we're cool people.
Yeah.
Write a quick review. Make sure you share this with your friends and family, and then join us every Friday for a brand new episode of the Talking Phase podcast. So this is until next week. This is Pam and Tom signing off.
Have a great day.